Let's get ready for a good show.
Black space is a place for us.
Real people with real issues.
Discussing real topics.
Black space.
A safe space for our community.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Black Space Live. I am your host, the Lamar Finley, affectionately known as Penny. Jordan, with me are two amazing ladies, as George likes to say, the other host, George, likes to say, a very powerful group of individuals joining me to discuss tonight's topic. Tonight's topic is, does the patriarchy exist within the Black community? I can pontificate about this all night, but as I said, joining me is, I'm not by myself tonight. Joining me is the beautiful China and the beautiful Laquita Beal. But before we get into this good conversation, listen, do me a favor, right? Don't be stingily. My nephew says, if you are stingily to people, then people will be stingily to you. In other words, don't be selfish with this content. I want you to like, share, and subscribe. But before we get started, I want to introduce my panel. With me is from the great state of Texas, China. Go ahead and introduce yourself. Good evening, China.
Hi, Penny. Hi, guys. Again, my name's China, out of Dallas, Texas, from Mississippi, Southern girl. But I'm just
Mississippi.
That's right. Happy to be here.
And our other lovely guest, I don't even know. This is my first time having to share the stage with you, Laquita Beal. You're going to tell me a little bit about you because I don't know.
Laquita, okay. Good evening. Hey, good evening. All right. I am reaching out to you all from the lovely, crazy state of Florida. But I, myself, am a Southern girl as well. I'm from Birmingham, Alabama, born and raised. I am one of Queen Afua's Sacred Women and a leader of communications and PR for the Black Lives Matter grassroots chapter here in Tampa, Florida. So thank you for having me.
Bulls. Go Bulls. That's my alma mater. I'm not far from you, Laquita. I'm over in Polk County.
Okay, so you're not far at all.
I'm not far at all. So if you get out of line, I'm coming for you. I'm kidding. So here we are talking about the patriarchy. First of all, ladies, in your own words, what do you believe the patriarchy is? What is the patriarchy, Laquita?
In so many words, patriarchy is a extreme form of white supremacy.
Okay. So Laquita says it's extreme form of white supremacy. What say you, China?
I say a lot of people think it's man first.
Okay, so she says white supremacy. China says men first. Mm-hmm. All right, so I'm gonna say that one more time, China.
Simply put.
Okay. I'm gonna give you the definition. This is coming from the dictionary, Oxford Dictionary. It says it's a system of society or government in which the father or eldest male is head of the family and descent is traced through the male line. Or it's a system or society of government in which men hold power and women are largely excluded from it. And the third is a society or community organized on patriarchal lines. So, let's just jump right into it. I'm going to ask just a flat out question. Does this exist? Does this, Laquita thinks it's white supremacy, right? So I would agree immediately that definitely exists in the Black community, and we'll dive into that. But before we get into that, does the patriarchy as described by the Oxford Dictionary, does that exist in the Black community? Any one of you ladies can jump in.
It should. Ideally, right?
Why do you say that?
Well, I'm sticking to pretty much just what we're talking about, our community. You have a lot of men who seriously do do not know how to lead. And if you can't lead, how can a woman follow? How can your family follow? I feel as though we do have crutches. We like to speak about, and don't get me wrong, of course, history matters, right? That's important, but we have to get out of this old mentality, right? And most of us, have not risen up to the occasion.
Okay. So you say it should, but you led with it should exist. So that means you don't believe it exists within our community.
Well, yes and no. You can follow the wrong leader, right? There's a saying that, of course, men, they make the rules. This is a man's world, right? We have to abide and follow by those rules, society. But as far as in our community, of course, we know that most women run the home, so that's why I said it should.
Okay. Okay. Laquita, before we dive out into your definition, let's stick with the definition. I want to dive into that. Let's stick with the definition as posed or as defined by Oxford. Do you believe, using the Oxford dictionary definition, does the patriarchy exist within the Black community?
And in terms of lineage, we are traced by who's your mom, who's your mother, because unfortunately, the male archetypes are missing through a lot of our lineages or unknown. So, no, that doesn't exist. That what is described in the dictionary does not exist in our community. But there is a form of absence. The male's absence does create a imbalance within our community. That is a part of patriarchy. That imbalance was created on purpose, because when you don't have strong families, you don't build generational wealth. And when you don't have wealth, you control nothing. So you end up being a slave, multiple types of slaves, medical, prison, working corporate. You become different types of slaves because your families do not have that male archetype that is present, keeping the family together. So patriarchy exists in our community, but not by that definition.
Okay, so you opened the door, and I appreciate it, and I'm very curious to hear your perspective. So you opened the door. You said, well, you said it does, but you said, well, let's jump into that. You said it does exist. In what way does it exist in our community?
Patriarchy exists in the form of, I guess, they like to, Willie Lynch is no longer here, but the remnants of that type of conditioning, it is still very prevalent. So our men are trained to be insensitive to our needs, and they're trained to never grow up and be responsible males. So you end up with a lot of the accountability and responsibility falling on the Black female, which makes us angry, hard, and most of us are like, submit to what? Because most of the times we haven't had a good example on what a strong male should be. So that is how it exists in our community right now.
So, okay, all right. So I want to jump into, um, before I get pushback on that, I want to jump into, you said that patriarchy is white supremacy. I want to jump into that. What do you mean?
When I say that it's done on purpose, or patriarchy, for instance, it's not African American or African in nature. Through Arabization and through the Greeks spreading into ancient Kemet, that is when we got introduced to patriarchy. And since then, Egypt fell, and we've been tumbling down, down, down to the pits of Hades ever since. We went under their rules as to how they treat their women, and their women were treated as cattle and not elevated in a way that they were elevated under ancient Kemet and Nubia and all of our great Black civilizations before the Arabization and the Greek culture bled over into ancient Kemet. And because of that, patriarchy is not of our nature. It is something that came from white supremacy and is a part of the white supremacy hand guide, which is why it is in the Bible. It is used to create a system that keeps women as a form of cattle to be traded and married amongst men, because with the women there comes wealth, because with that legacy of the children that the women bear, that is who you can give your riches to and pass it down throughout your family. So when you can control the woman, you can control the fertility and the lineage of your family. Therefore, you can control your generational wealth. That is how patriarchy, it is white supremacy in nature. That's one of the reasons why you see a lot of these bans happening. It is not because of the fact that their numbers are depleting. It is because they want to continue to have low income workers that come from our bellies and to keep our wealth gap wide. Because when COVID happened, the wealth gap started to close because Black women started opening small businesses and becoming their own bosses and choosing motherhood second. That choice leaves these corporations with not too many people willing to work for pennies. So you need desperation to have those types of workers, which is why you have abortion bans, to create that desperation and to feed the workforce of low income workers. So that is white supremacy.
So you said that's why it's in the Bible. What do you mean? What do you mean? That's why what is in the Bible? Patriarchy?
Yes.
So, but my pushback on that is the Bible isn't white.
There's a cross, and then that symbol, it says the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost. There's no female principle in their religion. She is kept out.
But women
she bit the apple.
Yeah, but that's
she was the
I don't want to get too deep into Christian theology, but I disagree with your interpretation that women are left out. Women are very much a part of the Bible, and the biblical principle for family is it's hierarchical, right? There's God, the Father, who answers to him and is supposed to be held liable to die for his family. You know, the wife is a helpmeet, and then she assists in running the family. It's not a slave master type relationship, and she's definitely not treated as cattle. That is not correct. But I want to challenge you on one other thing before I'm gonna now let China jump in.
I disagree. The Black
okay,
women are treated as cattle. That is why when we have a birthing experience, we're more likely to die than any other race. But we are treated as cattle by our men, and we are treated subhuman. And because we were trained to do that. That is a part of the conditioning that's come with us coming over to America, breaking the ability to have respect and value for your woman. That is a part of patriarchy. That is a part of keeping us down.
I think you're conflating white supremacy with patriarchy, because when Black women, and I know the numbers with respect to health outcomes of Black women in this country specifically, but when Black women are being taken care of by Black doctors and Black nurses, that's just not true. That's only true with white doctors and white nurses.
That's not that. I wish that was the case.
That is the case.
That was the case. I wish that was the case. Because when you go to give birth, your Black doctor is not there the whole time. That doctor only comes right when you're ready to deliver. Leading up to delivery, there is an escalation in birth that can lead to your death. And then also it's the post care that you get. That doctor's not going to see you every time you go back to the clinic. They may not be available. You may see someone that is not your Black doctor. That is how we pass away.
True, but again, and research has shown this is one reason why there's a push for more Black and brown doctors. That when in the care of Black and brown doctors, those numbers, that's how they are able to make or establish that there is a difference. There is a difference. There certainly is a difference in care with respect to medical care professionals. Another thing I wanted to push back in again.
So you're saying there isn't a problem.
You're saying there isn't a problem. I didn't say there wasn't a problem. I'm saying that that's the issue with white doctors and Black women. If you step outside of this country to Black and brown countries, they don't have this disparity. They only have this disparity in America specifically. It's a huge problem in America specifically. Once you step outside these borders, that's not an issue. That's why I said there's a conflation, because every other country, well, I strike that. Most Western countries are not patriarchal. They're not. Most Eastern countries, or quote unquote, traditionally Eastern countries, are. And they don't have these disparities. It's an issue in this particular country. So I always want to make the delineation, because I think that there's a conflation between white supremacy and patriarchy. And I will argue that our patriarchal communities are not the negative stereotypical communities, that are being shown to us in movies like Color Purple or What's Love Got to Do with It, where you have these terrible male figures. Those are just terrible male figures. That is not a result of a patriarchy. That is a result of terrible black male figures, because there's terrible white male figures, right? It has nothing to do with patriarchy. Just like bad women are bad women. It has nothing to do with the quote unquote a matriarchy. Are you following my delineation?
Mm-hmm.
So, but I want to try to get a chance to chime in what we're talking about, because we're kind of going back and forth. I don't want to leave her out of the conversation. You got anything to add to this conversation?
No, this is good. I mean, I like the debate. Both of you made key points, to be honest with you, in my opinion. I don't know the stats on, the delivery rate and the Black mothers, and I've never been.
It's terrible.
Yeah,
it's terrible.
Yeah,
it's horrible. And Laquita raises a very good point. It's terrible, but the issue there is that Black women are treated differently. They're not treated the same as, and I think that those are all symptoms of white supremacy. No different than how we treat our Black boys, right? Our Black boys are largely ignored unless and I've made this point many times on many different platforms, right? If you have a son that can play sports, right, and he's very good at it, he is paid attention to, he will be encouraged, he will matriculate, right? If you have a boy that is a high IQ, he will also be paid attention to, he will be encouraged, he will matriculate. If you have an average boy, right, that has average boy problems, right, he's not given the graces that other boys are. Specifically, it's Black boys are not given the same graces as white boys, especially as they get taller and older. So once they hit a certain height and weight, or once they hit a certain age, they are automatically held responsible for all of their decisions, right? Even though we didn't prepare them for this point. That is a result of white supremacy. Our Black boys are treated as older than they are, and they're given more responsibility than they should. They're not allowed to be boys. Our women are not allowed to fully emote as women. They're not treated as they should be, with respect to caring kindness, with respect to our healthcare systems. There's many other ways there that I agree with Laquita, but I always want to make the delineation. And I'll be honest. No, there's no shame in my game. I'm a devout Christian who is stoutly defensive of the Bible, but I want to take back this idea that the Bible is white. It ain't. It was stolen. And the Bible, like many other things in our country, it was co-opted with white supremacy. That's why you have these white pictures of Jesus, which is crazy, because in European countries today, they have pictures that are older than the pictures of Jesus being a man of color. They don't advertise those things because there's certainly always an agenda. But I rest there. China, you said earlier that you wish our community was patriarchal. Why do you say that?
I wish it was. A wise man once said, when men are better, our community will be better. Black men specifically. You mentioned, I think you mentioned Ike, right? You mentioned someone else. And
I said I can mister.
That is true. But the thing is, we don't have men being raised by men. You have women raising men, and they cannot do that. Yes, we can make sure that they're fed. Yes, we can make sure that we do the very best that we can, but only a man can show another man how to be a man. You have women who are put into certain positions that we don't necessarily want to be in. We don't desire to have to be the leader of our home, to be the head of the household. Most of us don't desire that, but because we have absent fathers, we're placed in those positions.
Okay. What say you, Laquita? Because she's also repeated this idea that they're put into those positions. What do you think? You think that they're put in these positions that they don't want to be in?
Yes.
Women? How so?
It is generational in my family. I've seen that from my great grandmother to my grandmother to my mother. I've watched this cycle of absent men kind of perpetuate throughout my family. My grandmother was not in any position, um, as far as being a single mother, except for my mom. She's the oldest, her oldest daughter. But the rest of them, she was married. But unfortunately, her father, who was married to her mother, was completely abusive. He was present, but he was absent. He was abusive. And that cycle carried from generation to generation. So either the man was present and he was abusive and destructive to the family, or he was absent and the mother was left to go in survival mode and do the best she can by her kids. I've seen that happen, unfortunately, in a lot of the relationship dynamics of a lot of my family. So I come from a family we are direct descendants of from picking cotton. Okay, my family are direct descendants from slaves. My great grandmother, actually came from a cotton field in Uniontown, Alabama, and married my grandfather when she was a teenager. So I've seen things like that with marrying the younger women. Ageism is a patriarchal thing. A lot of these things that we do or men do a lot of the times with the women, as far as like marrying them young, is to train them up to the wife they want them to be, or to make sure they're submissive enough. They don't get any bright ideas or whatever. Those types of things are not necessarily true, because when a woman gets old and she gets wiser, she's going to leave. And that's when you end up seeing happening with Mima and Papa. They didn't stay together. They were married for a long time and then divorced, because divorce became okay at a certain point for them. It's unfortunate that you see that a lot in our communities and in our families, but we really need to focus on how we can stop these systems and create a sense of balance, because patriarchy has never benefited the Black community in any sense. I would love to see, and if you look to Africa, it has not benefited Africa in any type of way. You can't point to one country over there and tell me where they're prosperous and doing well under the patriarchal systems that make women, so in some instances, like in the Congo, subhuman or second or completely ignored. You can't be anywhere without a male there. So I don't see where any of these systems have benefited us.
So, do you think that the majority of Black men in America are violent and absent?
I'm not going to say a majority. I'm not going to say
if
that.
you could put a number on it, what would you what, from 0 to 100? So you said not a majority. So you're saying 40, at least up 0 to 49%. What number would you put on it?
I wouldn't. I would say any man has the potential to be that way.
Well, of course, just as any
Any
man has the
any
potential to be president.
any
But I'm
man
saying,
has the potential that I can't
right.
put a number on that, because you have brothers who start off that way and heal. I can't say that's the way you are, because I don't know your walk. I don't know your journey. A man could, like, for instance, with my father, he was completely abusive with my stepmom, but has never once, one of my stepmothers, with my new stepmother, never hit her once. So you never know what type of change a man can go through, to go from one state to the next. Because again, we're coming off of years of being trained and to be one way. It's hard to have one type of mentality in regards to handling women that is not of our culture. The way that we were taught to be in relationships and even have love relationships, it's not the dance that we do is not our own dance. It is a dance that was given to us by our European enslavers, who were not particularly good men to their women.
So I hear this narrative a lot, right? And the narrative of absent fathers, and I hear the narrative of the abusive men, and I certainly believe that there's a percentage of every group that has abusive men. But Black men, we carry the title. We carry this horrible title of being the poster child of the abusive man, and this is why we're not coupling, and this is why women are forced to do it on their own. And I think that that's unfair. I don't think that we're any more abusive than our Latin brothers are, or the white men are, or the Asian men. I think that we get this negative title. And I mentioned Color Purple earlier. I think that's one of the reasons why, because this is how the media portrays us. Back in the day, we were abusive, even though this was a time. Well, actually, let me take a step back. Back in the day, we were abusive, even though we were the most married. During slavery and Jim Crow, we were the most
Marriage does not equal safety.
I'm aware of that. Let me finish this point. Even though we're the most married, that's the caveat. They were grandma wasn't happy. She was being beat on. I reject that notion. I reject that notion. I think that we have been black men specifically, because we're the only one. Every other group is married more than we are. Every other group is outperforming us. But we get this banner of being abusive and absent, even though there are studies. CDC did a study. The Conservative Heritage Foundation did a study saying that black men are the most involved in their children's lives. And it's anecdotal, but I'm a board member for a children's rights advocacy group, in which there's a backlog of dads trying to get in court to see the children, fighting to see the children. Stats have shown year after year, 5% or 10% increase year over year for the past decade, that men are petitioning the courts to see their kids, black men specifically. This does not tell me that black men are intentionally being absent or not trying to take care of the responsibility. This tells me there's a group of men out there that are fighting to see it. Now, I've always come to the conclusion that we have been, our power has been usurped in our community by white supremacy, right? By painting us with this broad brush of being these evil, hyper-sexed, aggressive, delinquents. This is how we paint the men in our community. And I think that our women have bought into that. Couple that, follow me on this, couple that with this idea of y'all being strong, black and independent, when interdependence is how you build communities. Couple those two messages and you have chaos. If I can convince all the women that the black men are delinquents, right, and convince all of them that they're strong and independent and don't need men, you're going to have chaos within the community. And I don't think that we created that message, right? Because if you look at the parts of our community where that message has been muted, to my Islamic brothers and sisters, they do a hell of a much better job of community than any other part of our community does. Or when you get into higher incomes, they do a much better job because they can mute that message. I don't know. What do y'all think about that?
I agree. Honestly, it's all an agenda. It's all an illusion. They only want us at our worst, right? So that's what they're going to portray us as. They don't want to portray the young black boy going to medical school. They want to promote the guy that's at Mississippi State or Auburn University doing his thing on the field. That's the only thing that they want to portray. They don't want to portray the black girl that just opened up her business and just started. They don't want to portray a black family unit together. They don't want to portray honestly, the black boy from a man. They don't want to portray anything positive when it comes to that in the light of them. But it's all it's all in their agenda. It's all about their plan. And so, I look at things a little bit differently. I will be honest with you. I of course, this is the world that we live in. I can't change it by myself. I can't change it alone. However, I can change how I utilize what they give us, right? I don't play into this whole white power thing. Yes, it is true. However, I'm not going to let that dictate me and mine. So yes, we have crutches out there. Yes, we have been oppressed. All of that is very much so true. However, look at you, Penny. Look at you, Miss Bill. We beat the odds. Why can't everyone else do the same thing? We can't keep leaning on the fact that
I'm still Pope.
What's that?
I'm still Pope.
You know what? we can't keep leaning on the white man is holding me back. We just cannot. If we do continue to do that, we'll be having the same conversation in 2050, 2055. We can't allow that to happen. So we have to take control of our own narratives. We have to. So that's just my opinion on that. I know some people are like, well, I get it, just generational and generational. Yes, that is true. But let's talk about today. What can we do now?
Right.
That's
So
me.
I wanted to speak on something you spoke about, Black fatherhood rising. So Black fatherhood is on the rise, and so is Black marriage. Those numbers correlate with the fact that we are marrying the women that we have babies with now, and we are deciding to build families. That increase has been happening, I think, since 2018. So
There was a small increase. Yep.
and when COVID happened, there definitely was a large boost in marriages because everybody started getting scared and ran to get married. Hey, I got married. No, serious, we got married and we had a baby too. COVID baby and marriage all in one. But more so, um, people are not spending forever with each other, and women are not settling for those long engagements anymore. So we're starting to marry and see the value in having an actual family unit. Also, there's a rise in mental health. A lot of Black people were confronted with our own mental health with ourselves during lockdown and COVID. A lot of people started better helping, teledocking, doing that work. So we've been all doing that shadow work, working out our, differences, working out some of the traumas from our childhood, because that's the first thing you have to get over. And when you see that inner child start to heal, you start to see more of our brothers stepping forward to be strong enough to be able to lead. And you start to see some of our women having more space to be feminine and to be quiet, because we don't have to be so vocal, because now we have a spokesman. The man is supposed to speak. I'm the one that thinks that my power is in my silence, because in my silence I am paying attention, and I'm seeing things that my husband is never going to see, because my mind, I see stuff like, hey, you saw that? Did you see that what he did? No, I didn't see that. Things my husband never catch. I always see it. So that's why I'm here. And I let him be the spokesman. We confer together, and he deliver the message. Somebody knock on the door. Hey, babe, you want to upgrade the cable? Nah, tell him we don't want it. He go back to the door and tell him, nah, we good, and leave. That same dynamic is starting to echo throughout our community. So when I say that it's patriarchy is white supremacy, I'm not saying that it's the white man keeping us down. I'm saying that it was a system that was never meant for us, because it's not actually our culture. It's not our culture. And I know you say the Bible is not a white tool, but that is a lot of the things they use whenever they indoctrinated us and brought us over from Nigeria. You have to remember, we were sold, the Yoruba people were sold because we wouldn't convert to Christianity. A lot of us were taken from Africa because we wouldn't bow to the Catholic Church. So that's how we ended up in chains. So I refuse to believe a book that put my ancestors through hundreds of years of pain and suffering, rape and exploitation was ever meant for me. Nor do I believe that the system in which their relationships function up under was meant for me. Even the way they perform, before the way they have a sexual relationship with each other, it's performative. It's not even something that is as sensual as the things that we initially had when we first were in Africa before Arabization, and religions that were anti-woman spread through the motherland. So I'm saying all of this to say, so let's not think that I'm saying that there was some evil man in a white sheet that's holding our men down and making them not do what they need to do in the community, and it's making our women hyper masculine and unwilling to be in a relationship that's functional. All of those things come from traumas that people have to work through. And this is coming from somebody who was a nook if you buck, crazy, hot girl summer,
Nuck if you buck.
stripper. Hey, strip. I used to be a dancer. I used to be a dancer. I can't. All of that happened as a result of me not having a father, not having a family structure, and being in foster care and having to say, "Hey, I got to put a roof over my head. What am I gonna do? What am I gonna do in order to make sure I can take care of myself?" And then it snowballed until my ancestors got a hold of me and said, "Stop. This isn't your path. This is your path." So I was redirected back onto the right path. And I'm going to say only through divine help did I get that help. But it was also a choice I made. So it's going to come to people having to choose whether they're going to choose a relationship of balance, or does a man think that a woman's supposed to automatically submit to him simply because he has bits between his legs. That is not enough to make you the leader of a household. You have to prove that you are mentally and emotionally capable to lead this ship. Because if something happens to me, you're going to have to be able to do that on your own.
I don't disagree with most of what you said. I agree, and I don't think that men think that just because they have the twig and berries that makes them the leader, right? But
Yeah.
I do think in our community, I think that we are given unfair requirements for which to be men, right? And I've made this argument many times, right? I'm college educated, decent learner and all those good things. And I'm being judged as a black man by my income and my bedroom game, right? No other men are judged on that in order to couple to be husbands. They're judged on their integrity and ability to get out there and try to pull it out the mud. They don't have to necessarily be able to pull it out the mud. Just try. And I always give the example of, and I'm being stereotypical here. So, don't cancel me, y'all that are listening. Juan and Maria, Juan could be selling fruit on the corner. Maria could be folding, towels in the hotel, and he will get the same respect at home from Maria. And I don't think that we see that, and that's why there's been many discussions about like the whole discussion about was it Erica, whatever her name was, that made the comment about marrying a bus driver and all this other kind of stuff, or dating a bus driver and all this other kind of stuff. But I won't jump into that. So I wanted to point out that I think that we're measuring different yardstick. But and let me be clear, I'm not saying that white people have not used the Bible inappropriately. They absolutely have. The slave Bible was not an entire Bible. Slaves were told to read certain scriptures, just like the prosperity preachers today. They pick and choose the parts of the Bible that push forth their narrative. They don't read the entirety of it. It's like me reading a paragraph and picking out the sentences that push forth the narrative counter to what the paragraph is saying. They're doing the same thing. But the reason I push hard against this idea that the Bible is white, one, because it ain't, and two, because that's literally what they did. They pick the parts that they like to push forth an agenda. Catholic Church no different. The Ethiopians will beat their chests profusely and say that we are the original Christians. The oldest church is in Ethiopia. The oldest copy of the Bible from Ethiopia. And Ethiopian myths say that they are the descendants of the biblical King Solomon. This is what they say today. This is what they've always said. So I just pushed back against that part. But with respect to community, right? So Laquita, you're married. You said you're married. Is there a hierarchy in your household?
No.
So you and your husband are equal on all accounts.
We practice ma'at.
I don't know what that is.
Ma'at is balance.
Okay. So door gets kicked open. Whoever gets to the door first is the person that takes the bullet.
Okay, so let's talk about ma'at a little bit. Let's talk about it. So when you're talking about ma'at, you have to keep in mind, I'm trying to find it. I had it just right here and I don't have it. Let's talk about the ankh, right? On the top, you have the woman. On the bottom, you have the male. So you have the bottom, the top, and then the line that goes through, which is the generations that are carried on by the children that are born from that relationship. That's the legacy. So if that door gets kicked under ma'at, since he is the support of the women and children, he holds us up. He protects us. So that protector under ma'at, and my husband's a Marine and Army, retired, he's finna come through that door and they finna get lit up.
That mean whoever, all right. That mean whoever coming through that door about to get destroyed. Okay.
Ooh, baby, I feel sorry for him. I had to snatch him back in the car a couple times because these people in Florida have mouths and he don't talk.
Yeah,
he just started going for the steals. I'm like, baby, nope. Literally, don't. So if somebody come through that door, they're gonna get shredded up. And I have to stay in your ground state. They show up.
So second question. If there is a time of financial necessity, right? Are y'all expected to carry an equal load, or do you want them to carry a heavier load?
Our relationship's a tad bit different than most marriages, okay? My husband is a injured retired veteran. He was discharged medically because he got hurt in an
First of all, thank your
explosion.
husband for his service. Make sure you tell him I
Thank you.
said that.
Thank you. He hurt his leg, tore his ACL, um, hurt his hip really bad. He has a bit of a limp. Has to go to physical therapy still. So because of his physical condition, he is not able to work as many hours.
Yeah, I don't want you to get too much in your personal. I'm just saying.
No, it's
normal,
okay. No, it's okay.
Okay,
This is where when in your Christian belief, help me comes in, because not
Right.
every dynamic is money. Because when you come into a marriage with money, and the money is gone, and so is your wife, right? We come into this thing as into it, whatever you're able to bring to the table, you bring it. Because before you came here, I had my own damn table. I had a table. It was decked out. There was a buffet. We ate every day. We didn't miss nothing. Okay. I had my bag all the way together before I married my husband. It was thousands in the bank when he met me. So I handled my business. I don't expect my husband to be the main breadwinner, because I know mostly a man can't really make the kind of money I make. So I'm not going to expect for you to keep up with me, because I'm a special breed. It's going to take a special breed type of man to be able to do what I do. So it's not that often that I'll be able to meet a man of color that can handle business like that, or been able to do things like that. So no, we bring to the table whatever you can bring. He's retired. He's not doing too bad retired, and I'm not doing too bad doing what I do myself. So when it comes in the middle, we're very comfortable. So my work on top of his money makes us have an extreme amount of cushion and comfort. If I was one of those women who sat back and said, "You take care of me," there would be no wealth. There would be nothing to have. There would be nothing, because I'm lazy. I don't think a woman, and I know I'm going to get a lot of like pushback for this. I don't think a woman has to be unemployed to be in her soft space. You can still work. You can still make your own money. You can still run your own business. You can even out earn your husband. But it's all about will your man's ego be all right with that? Will your husband be okay with you out earning him? Well, because because of white supremacy, men are made to think that what they can bring to the table financially is the only thing that makes them of value as a man in their household. But that's not it. Can you protect? Can you emotionally support? Can you, also work and do whatever you do to bring money to the table? If you're disabled, that's fine. I'm gonna take care of you, because that's what the promise I made to God before I married you was to take care of you. Those are the things that come up in a marriage when it's starting to get real. You know what I'm saying? It's all butterflies and I love yous until the other person can't walk. Then what?
Nate needs to clip what you just said, and it needs to go viral. So I was trying to hit you with what patriarchy actually is, but you hit me with what a marriage should be. You hit me right in the gut with it, and I respect it and I love it. That is exactly what it's supposed to be. Right now, men are socialized to be providers, and I think most women want them to. Most women, I'll be fair to women. I think women that think that they can sit on their behinds are ludicrous. I think that they're ludicrous. I think most women, and historically, even white women, didn't sit on their behinds. Even the white women on the prairie, they had to get out there and do something, because otherwise they'd have starved to death. Only the top of the top had those women that lived the soft life. Just like today, most women don't have that soft life. 96% of women actually go to work every day. But I love that. And this is a discussion for another time with respect to how we're socializing boys, and we're going to have to kind of redefine what the role of men are. But all of patriarchy is a hierarchy. And before I get on that point, I cannot let what you said rest. I love it because I love it too much. This idea of putting everything on his shoulders, and if he fails, I'm out, is terrible. And that's the message that, especially in our community, that I hear. I hear that a lot. In dating, that's all I heard. That's why I bid them adieu. Because it's like, okay, you want me to protect, provide, beat the back out, build the table, own the table, and what do you bring? And the majority of the answer was me. Okay, there are literally billions of you. What do you bring to the table? And most importantly, if something were to happen to me, and where's my backup? And I think this is where marriage has gone astray. And it is that warped view of marriage that we live within our community. That's another reason I think that we're struggling to be married. You see what I'm saying? Laquita, I'll be honest with you. Let me be honest. When we got on the platform, and I judged you. I judge everybody. I'm honest about it. But you're not what I thought you were. And you're not. You're an amazingly married woman that has it figured out, that's doing it the right way. But the woman that I thought you was, the stereotype, because I stereotype everybody. Everybody does it. No, people are just willing to admit it. I do. But the difference between me and everybody else is I'm not going to react off of that stereotype. Does that make sense? I'm going to look at you and judge you and say, oh, I think you're going to be a certain way, but I'm going to wait and see who you are. Right? It's a Christian principle of try the spirit by the spirit. And I may be misquoting that scripture, but I'm supposed to I'm going to see who you are first before I treat you a certain way. I'm not going to run with my foolishness that I've been programmed to believe. But a lot of in our community, or women in our community have been, and I blame white supremacy for that. This idea of we don't need to be interdependent and we don't need our men, and men aren't important. Every statistic that you talked about with respect to depression and all these things are linked to lack of fathers around. It's linked to lack of fathers. Almost every negative statistic you can think about with the individual points to lack of dad. Now, I believe in 5149 marriage. And the only reason I believe in 5149, so I always describe marriage as, I'm a pilot. And so everything, I have many metaphors, and China's had to hear this many times. Many metaphors go into, marriage from being a pilot. I'm the captain, she's the first officer. Can she fly planes like I can? Absolutely. You have the exact same training. Just like as a parent, you can parent, just like men can parent, right? You have the exact same training. The only difference is the buck stops with me. I'm the responsible for making sure that plan goes from point A to point B. I take on that responsibility because I don't want you to have to take on that responsibility. Not saying you can't do it. It's just that's my role. Does that make sense? And in a true captain first officer situation, if there's ever an emergency and they can't figure it out, it's the captain's job to say, you know what? I'll take it from here. If I mess up, I take all the blame. You're held blameless. And so that's what a real patriarchy is. It's not the man being domineering. It's not the man treating his wife as property. She's not. Leadership is about serving, right? As Christians, we learn that Jesus was the ultimate servant leader. He gave his life, right? That's what men are supposed to be. And I think that it's been because of white women in their struggle, white men. Yes, let's be honest. That's why they wanted, equality. That's why the feminist movement happened, because they had struggles because the white men of power had too much power and weren't willing to yield and share it, right? They wanted all the spoils for themselves and they were domineering. And I think
not only that, they were abusive.
Yeah, I'll admit that. Yeah, that's true as well. And so I think they wanted out of that. Those women wanted out of that. But to be fair, there were also women saying, I'm okay with being married. I'm okay with being a wife and a mom. Because I think that goes for the women that are saying, hey, you know what? We got it good over here. It's not bad. I think the women that were dealing with the oppressive, bad-natured men wanted out, and I think they wanted equality, and I think the women that were okay with it, were pushing back. We're pushing back against it. Whew, what a conversation, Laquita. I love you. You got to be on more. You got to be on more stages with me. I swear you do. I swear you do. China, she's pro patriarchy.
Yes.
Go ahead, speak up, China. Me and Laquita then gave a whole marital sermon. And I want that to be clipped. I seriously am going to ask Nate to clip that, what she gave about marriage and what you're really supposed to be doing. I love it. I love it, Laquita. She's from Florida too. That's probably why though. She a Florida. Well, she's from Alabama, but she a Florida girl now. So that's probably
you can't claim her.
Well, I'm glad. Too late. I didn't claim her.
No,
claim it.
both of you guys are 100% right. Um, how long have you been married, Laquita?
This is our second year being married, but we've known each other since high school. We
Okay.
know, and we dated right before he went to Afghanistan, but he didn't want anything serious before he deployed. So I broke it off because I don't. You can't get the cow. Get the milk, or how they say it. You
Without,
can't
yeah.
buy
Can't
the
get the you
yeah.
can't get the milk if you don't buy the cattle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yes, you can't get the milk if you don't buy the cow. So, it was nice having fun with you, but bye. So I moved away from Alabama to Florida, and he actually hit me with the "What are you doing?" on Facebook, and I was like, nothing, like dry. What you want? But I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna be nice and speak, and then it went to I was supposed to marry you, and I'm like, what? Let's see what you're talking about. So it went from that to us talking again until him coming and proposing. When a man want to be a husband, they don't wait. So I don't
Oh,
understand the lengthy engagements, but when they ready, they
they go.
already know. They know immediately. That's what he inboxed me for. He inboxed me to propose to me. Just like, hey, maybe let me see, maybe this was her. This was and she just because I was the only woman that had set boundaries. It's like, no, so he came back, was like, hey, wait, it's supposed to be you. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. It was supposed to be me. And I mean, I've always had a crush on him since high school. So it worked out.
And you were available.
I am happy. I'm
That's
happy
a
for you.
beautiful story. And Penny, you've been married for how long now?
What is it? 3 weeks? 4 weeks?
Okay.
4 weeks?
Now
Congratulations.
I'm not trying to get too deep into your business, but how old are you, Penny?
Old.
It's your first marriage?
Yeah. And if you don't, want to let us know, that's okay. But do you
It's
mind
okay.
sharing how old you are, Miss Laquita?
I am 37, and this is my second marriage, though.
Oh, okay. Okay. And the only reason why I'm asking these questions is because we have to think about the people that's coming up. We have to think about our young men and our young women coming up. They're not thinking about marriage, okay? They're thinking about having hot girl summers and wearing hoochie daddy shorts. Seriously, we are not teaching our children the values of family and marriage. We're not realizing this until we get on up in age, most of us. And don't get me wrong, there's absolutely nothing wrong with going to college, getting your degree, starting your career. Is nothing wrong with that, but why can't we have it all? Right? A lot of our issues that we have is because we're pitting our children against one another. You don't need him. You don't need her. You don't need no girl. You can cook and clean. That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. But yet we have parents and aunties in our communities telling our children this this trash, right? So the problem is, in my opinion, we're not training our children to understand the value of it, to understand the value of the community, to understand the value of having your husband in the household, to understand the value of your children having their father in the household. And we're not realizing that until we get, 35, 40 plus. And not saying there's anything wrong with that, because as they say, time waits for no man. I understand you got to move on. However, if we start at the root of it, a lot of these issues that we're having, we won't see. Your story is touching because you came from a troubled past. But look at you. However, if you would have had your mother, and if you would have had your father, and if they would have been on one accord and understanding that in this household we're gonna do A, B, and C, who knows? You know what I'm saying? All of us.
Right.
I'm sorry.
I said, right.
Oh, okay. All of us are on this path. It's just some of us have stumbling blocks on the way. And it's unfortunate, but that's why I always preach. It does not matter where you've been. It's all about where you want to go. It's all about where you want to go. So everything that you said, I'm like, oh, yes, ma'am. You know what I'm saying? Because we need more of that. we need to reach back, you know. And I used to teach high school and middle school.
Woo, middle school, that's herding cats.
Actually, I preferred middle school over high school because once they got to a certain age, you couldn't tell them anything. They thought they were grown. So at that middle school age, they still kind of sort of wanted to please you a little bit. And I told my kids, if you don't learn math, if you don't learn the area of a circle, or if you don't learn anything else, you're going to learn how to be and conduct yourself accordingly. But we don't have that requirement. We're not putting that requirement on our kids. We're not putting that requirement on our young girls, on our young boys. And hence then they turn into a different monster. So that's why I'm always wondering about the individual. Like, what is your story? Where did you come from? Because we do have those unfortunate souls out there that we all need to reach back. So that's why, it's important for me, reach one, teach one. But nowadays, you can't, right? If you see somebody doing something, you can't even correct them nowadays. You can't tell people a thing because they're going to get offended. Oh, you said this. Oh, you're counsel. You're this, you're that. You can't even do that. So it's like, how can we fix the real problem? You know what I mean?
Yes.
But yeah, that's my little rant on that. I can go on and on and on about that because I care deeply about our youth and some of the paths that they're going down. It's just unfortunate, but you say something to somebody, it can go into a different direction. And so that's why I just wanted to ask those questions because it's unfortunate. I'm 33. I don't have children. I'm not married. I don't even see it it's not even in the near future. I don't know. Maybe I need to start answering some of my DMs. I don't know.
You better answer that. What your husband say, LaQuita? What he said in the DM on Facebook? What you doing, or what he say?
What? Yeah, what you doing? I'm like, oh.
You better answer your what you doing, China.
Maybe I need to, but there's so many women in my circumstances, in my situations, where we don't have decent men coming into our lives, coming into our circles. Therefore, we are having to sit back and wait. But how long do we have to do that? How long do we want to wait? You know what I'm saying? So it's hard. It's hard. That's a whole different story. But
let me tell you about that, okay? I met my first husband, and I married my first husband in 2010, okay? And we got married. We stayed together about 3 years, and I separated and left. Okay, I left in 2013. In between me separating from my husband, I had a little fling with my current husband, but I cut it off because I'm like, if you not give me another one of these, I gotta bounce. Because if I'm gonna break up, if I'm gonna leave my husband, it's gonna be for another husband, not a boyfriend, right? So I left, and I actually divorced my husband to marry my current husband. So because I'm hey, look, I gotta look out for me first and foremost in my heart. I'm not gonna waste my time giving a boyfriend husband privileges. I shall not. I did that in my early 20s, and let me tell you, I wasted my time. If I could reclaim my time, baby, I'd be rich and I'd be all right. So I really think when you were saying earlier about the youth, I wasn't taught certain things. I wasn't taught to value marriage or my physical body. I wasn't taught the value I had as a woman. I had to go on a healing journey to find out my value and to be able to be the person I'm supposed to be. But a lot of the times, our men, they are very hypersexual. They can be kind of, because they're taught masculinity from a standpoint of how many women they can conquer or how many women they can take care of financially out here in these streets. And instead of thinking I can just get one woman and build an empire, they're not taught that. And because of that, you see a disconnect in our relationships. I honestly think our youth should be taught to be able to date healthily, have a healthy dating, without sex, just a healthy date, just dates, non-sexual relationships, and build your career. Be about your bag. Be about your career. be about your emotional health and what you want, and date. Don't make any commitments until you get in your late 20s or your early 30s. Then you know what you want. You've already solidified yourself in a career. Your finances are a little bit more stable, and you're able to enter into a relationship, hopefully debt free by that time if you do it the smart way. So a lot of people are rushing, I think, our children into these relationships and having these lack of sexual boundaries that spill over into our absent fathers, because this man, just because he made a baby with you does not mean he's ready to be a father. And the same for you. You have to be ready for those types of things. So again, I think a lot of the times in our relationships we end up giving birth to these children thinking it's going to make the relationship work, and it doesn't, because the man is still a baby himself. He needs space to grow and cultivate and be a man and be ready for that. So in my marriage, we both have had some healing to do. I'm gonna call it a little bit of emotional healing, and being able to be in a relationship and be okay and be safe and not be combative with having dialogue where I can disagree and it's not an argument. We're just talking about it. We've had to unlearn bad behavior and relearn under my aunt how to function in a way that's not toxic. So he did the Man Heal Thyself program, and I did the Sacred Woman program. So in the middle, we become a whole couple. It's not perfect, okay? Because I'm a Capricorn. I can be mean. I'll be quiet and just look. And he hates it. But I'm not venomous with my words. I'm not aggressive with my hands. I'm not that toxicity you see in our community where you see the women getting beat up by the man and they go back because that's all they're used to, is that toxic fighting in the marriages. I'm not understanding. Our women are used to that. Like in Florida, I've seen some of the worst domestic violence cases I've ever seen. They get their eye socket broke and go back, and because they don't want to work, because he pays all the bills and she doesn't want to get a job. She eye socket broke. She up there looking crazy. Eye blood can't even see the eyeball. It's just blood sitting in the house looking crazy, because those are things that have been generationally taught to them to be okay with that abuse. Papa did it, so it's all right if he does it to me. No, that's not okay. That's not okay. You should be able to be in a relationship and be safe, and him not pummel you to death because you didn't cook dinner and you had to work too. That's crazy. It was a lady in Florida. She was coming home from work. I think you heard this. She was coming home from work. Her husband, or at the time, was so jealous, very jealous. She stopped to get dinner. Because she took too long to get home, he ended the life of his children. As soon as she got in the door, he did it. She thought the shots came from outside. It was in her house. Simply because she stopped to get dinner and it took too long. Those are the type of toxic relationships that happen, but you're seeing less of it happening, and you're seeing a great awakening happening in our community. So you have the algorithm saying that it's not happening. You have the algorithm pushing the manosphere. You have the algorithm pushing the, I call the dusty narrative, that men are dusties if they don't have money, which is not true, because you can have money and be the dustiest of them all, honey. So that's not true. These narratives are being pushed on us to keep our minds small and to keep us apart, because the reparations conversation is getting real loud. But not only that, the marry your baby mama conversation is also getting loud too. The generational wealth conversation is getting real loud in our communities. A lot of us are waking it up to a lot of the BS, and that we're actually in a unique position in America as Black people. We have the power to actually turn the tables and make this our Wakanda if we wanted to. But in order to do that, it takes a solid family structure, and it takes giving our youth the opportunity to develop themselves and be able to be contenders in this job market and to be political leaders in our Congress and in our Senate. So we'll have our players in place that's going to pass laws that benefit us. Until we get them elevated educational wise to get in these offices and these positions of change, we're going to stay in chains. In order for that to happen, you see all the politicians with their family on stage. That's what you got to have. You got to have a family to get on that stage. You got to have a family to lead that community.
See, Laquita, God dog, I hate you, not in the way you think I hate you. Boy, you say something, I'll be listening, I'll be ready to trounce on you, then you come back with a gem.
I'm
Say
sorry.
something else, you come back with 2 more gems. I'm like, God dog it. I can't trounce on her because she comes back with some gems. And shout out to George. Shout out to George. George is one of my favorite people in the world. George Milton, the host, because I've learned a lot from him. And shout out to Clubhouse, the Audible social media app. I've learned to listen. A lot of people, when they're having conversations, are look for trigger words and they look to trounce on that and they don't listen. But the thing that I've learned to do to really have deep dialogue is listen. And you are correct. Power comes from family. I've often said that, strong families create strong communities, which create strong nations. And even and that comes through marriage, right? Even our LGBTQ community recognized the power in marriage. They said, listen, there is something to be said here. And now look how powerful they are economically and politically. They understood that. We as Black people often look at them cross-eyed when I'm like, they fundamentally have it correct with respect to community. We're the ones with the mixed messages. The only pushback that I have to offer, because like I said, every time you said I want to translate, you came back with some jewels. Is our community where our community is weak is my pushbacks with what you're saying is one. I do think that we need to push back against this whole casual sex narrative, which I think that was pushed by white women, because there was a divergence between the feminism movement and the sexual revolution. They kind of met and they kind of ran, hand in hand. And I think that it has been horribly detrimental to our women. It has been horribly detrimental. This idea of you're going to go out here and move like men, and sex without feelings and situationships has been horrible for them. You can see the trauma in the way that they move when they are trying to be serious. They will meet a guy and they'll have 18 things what they won't do, right? And it's like, okay, all right, well, what will you do? Okay, I understand that, Chad did that to you, Tyrone did that to you, Keith did that to you, but I'm not none of them. Why are you coming with all this defense? And it's because of this casual sex, environment and culture that we've created. It's terrible. But back to the Black community, that's times 50, right? And we push our girls to get married later and later. That's doable. Getting your bag is doable so long as you're saying I'm getting this bag to help build a family. So my wife did. So long as you're saying I'm going to move and wait until I am, mature enough to understand the decisions that I'm making and the repercussions of those decisions, I'm good with that. So long as we're also pushing against this casual sex, because that is horribly detrimental, especially to our girls, right? But that's one piece. The other piece is we need to build up our boys. I said it early in the show. Average Black boys are ignored in our community. They're failing. They're the least graduated. They're the lowest reading scores. They're still the highest incarcerated, even though the incarceration rates are dropping. Our Black boys are still number one in all of those detrimental categories, right? Which leads to Black men being unmarriable. They have to overcome so many obstacles to even be quote unquote normal. And yes, through natural selection, some of them will get it, right? If you leave some people to their own devices, some will ultimately figure out, but most won't. We are a product of our environment. There is nature versus there is nature and nurture in there, but we are a product of our environment in many respects. And if we're not building them to be, the strong men that are necessary for strong communities, our women are left by themselves and left defenseless. Then you get these abusive men and these men that are unstable, that figure out through the dating game, which I did because, and let's be honest, this is what I'm hearing. He got to be able to blow my back out. He got to be able to pay my bills. This is what we're telling our boys. And so you wonder why they move that way. Why the broke ones work on they stroke game, right? The broke ones work on that mouthpiece and they stroke game because they know that's going to get them the attention that they see, right? They don't have character, but they can stroke it and they can give the mouthpiece, and oh, he make me feel so good.
But
And
that's
then
why
3 years later,
I'm sorry. But that's exactly why I said we're not teaching our young boys and our young girls the actual.
we're not.
We're not. We're going to continue to fail. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't see it. I mean, the tongue is very powerful. So let me.
It is extraordinarily powerful.
It's very powerful. But because of social media presence, we have our children committing suicide at alarming rates because they are wanting to be accepted by their peers. They're not looking at it long term. And that's why I say it's all about the family. I cannot stress that some people are expecting everybody else to raise their children. Someone is out there is thinking, oh, they're fine. They'll get it. They'll get it eventually. No, we need to get it right now. And yes, don't get me wrong. There's absolutely nothing wrong with being settled in your career and getting that started first. But my stance on that is I have time to do everything else while I still get my career. Why don't I have time to get that piece as well? You know what I mean? I'm an advocate for it. I tell all my young ladies, don't ignore the average young man. Don't ignore that average young Black man, because we all know the ones that we typically want is what Penny's been talking about with busting out your backs and all that other stuff. We don't have time for that. We have to tell our young girls, because we're the most affected by it. I'm sorry, we're the most affected by it.
You are. I say it all the time.
You are, and you said every time, strong families are going to create these communities.
That's the only way.
It is. That's the only way. So I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're good. You're good. The only other thing I was going to land with is that the other one is, telling men that they have to be these providers. And so I used to date leading with money because I understood that'll give me what I wanted. Take in a few dates. Yeah, I take you to Ruth Chris. So long as I can Ruth your Chris, you know what I'm saying? And I led honestly. And they were cool with it because let's just be honest, y'all, if we're being physical with you, you think that there's something going on, especially if I'm physical with you long enough, you think it's going somewhere. Let's just be honest. But we cannot be honest about that conversation. If we can't, and this is where I lean on women to tell young girls, listen, if you cannot be honest and tell them, listen, you're not going to win in this casual sex game. You're not going to. But this is also key while we need men around. Because if you're covered by a good man, if you're raising good boys, right? Strong boys, good boys to be good men, and then in turn to be good fathers, right? You are protected. The more good boys you raise, the more good men we create, the more protection in the community we have for our women. To steal Laquitas, in the Christian community, we call it covering. And my, what do you call it? The foundation? They call it the foundation. It's the same thing. And it doesn't happen if we're not creating strong boys that become strong men. It will not happen on its own. But this has been a good conversation. Man, it's been a good conversation. Laquita?
But also that hypersexuality, I want to just add another layer in there, because I noticed that you said it twice about the having to be a high performer sexually. Women expect that. A lot of that also comes from patriarchy. This belief that in order to be a great lover, your bits determine on what type of lover you're going to be. The amount of roughness that you have during your sexual relationship determines whether you're a good lover or not. Intimacy, okay, and sensuality are taking out of the bedroom. A lot of the reason why white women needed that sexual liberation movement, because at some points they weren't even allowed to be undressed to sleep with their men. They had to just lift their skirts and have all their clothes on. It was indecent for them to be nude and be sexual. A lot of things were indecent because it came from over in their motherland, in their mother country. They had a lot of very indecent sexual practices that dated back to ancient Greece. And I think we all know what a lot of them were. And we're not going to dive into that. And that indecency kind of has been imposed onto us as a people. Those indecent acts that were done to us to break us when we were treated as cattle, we were made to sleep with people who are our relatives to make more cattle. Those indecent relationships and indecent sexual interactions have been passed down along the generations. So we also have to learn a new way to have a sexual relationship with each other that is not abusive, because ain't no way nobody finna run up on me with some meat the size of an arm and be beating me down to the ground with it. I don't want none of it. I don't want it. I don't need it. Take that eggplant, put it up, go on somewhere with it, because I want to be able to walk after this. I don't want to have my cervix knocked back. I'm good. That's not a lot of women have never experienced sensuality in real lovemaking, because all they done got all their life was da 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 da. They don't know. When it happens, they get confused. Like, what are you doing? You kissing me? What's this? It's weird. I'm just speaking from a place of some of my own self-discovery. I had to rediscover my relationships when it came to physical touch. I realized that was something that I had, I guess, picked up as a result of miseducation. And I had never really been with a man and it been sensual before. So I had to stop myself and I had to rediscover my sexuality with myself first, then start back having a sexual relationship with other men. I went to therapy for sexual trauma. So in that therapy, that is some of the things that we undressed, and it got real deep. Like, I didn't want to go back.
No pun intended on the undressed.
Yes, no pun intended. It got real deep. No pun intended on that either.
Well, you all the metaphors today, boy. I'm all the puns today.
It got deep. And so if you're out there and you're having these relationships with men and there's no sensuality, ain't no strawberries and whipped cream, ain't no chocolate syrup, ain't no baths together, there's no, he ran you a bath and bathed you and then took you to the bed and ate you alive, like there's none of that. There's just beat it up, go to sleep. There's been no intimacy. So when we haven't had that intimacy, we start to think about it in an unnatural way that's unproductive. The relationship, essentially, you're being abused, sis. That ain't love. That's abuse. That ain't normal. Like, why would you want that? We have to stop wanting unhealthy interactions in our love life between our men. It's not all right to always be arguing. Shut up. Men don't care. Like, you guys care about our emotions, but your brains don't work like that. So sometimes we just got to be quiet and get our emotions together. Breathe. Call that elder woman that you have. If you don't have an elder that is a woman, figure out a way to journal, someone to release your emotions to, because don't drop them in your man's lap. You wouldn't know what to do with them, okay? And they just don't know. Sometimes if it's logical and they can understand, then great. But they don't understand some of the stuff we're going through. They don't understand. You got to just be quiet and just shut up and breathe. The
only thing I want you dropping in my lap is them yams. I'm kidding. The truth,
right. That's the truth. You're not lying. You're not lying, because that's exactly how y'all think. That's all y'all want is the yams. Y'all don't want the problems. That's where self-healing comes from, and being able to manage your emotions and being able to manage your mood.
I bought the cow, so I got all the problems that come with that cow. So
all the milk.
Yeah, I got all the milk and all the moon and the cow and all that stuff. So I bought it. I'm good. I can say place some yams on my lap.
That's right.
So, but we're gonna get final thoughts because we're a little bit over. I will say this, Laquita, you got to be back on the show with me.
I love y'all's dialogue. I'm just sitting there like, okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. We playing tennis up in here.
Yeah, it's been a great dialogue. China, you know I love you. I always want to be on stage with you. And I'm gonna find you a husband. You too beautiful to be out here, be single. So I'm gonna find you a husband.
That's what they say.
I had a prospect, but no, he ain't good enough for you. I'm just gonna be honest.
Well, thank you. I appreciate
you're a good Southern girl. You're a good Southern girl, and although he wants to be married, no, he's not. He's not gonna be a good match for you. But
see, we need men like you that's gonna tell their friend. We gotta have that. Y'all need to have those conversations amongst yourselves too. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but you gotta have the girlfriends willing to tell some of the women that I dated that you ain't wifey material. at a conference, because guys are honest. That guys are more. I believe guys are more honest with their guys than women are with their women. So, but we're gonna save that for another show. So I can go down there. So, final closing thoughts. With respect to our conversation about the patriarchy within the Black community. Laquita, you've been hot. I'm gonna start with you. You've been hot this show. What are your final thoughts? These are gonna be solutions.
I'm gonna say, in order for us to be able to have more balance in our relationship, we need to teach our boys they have to be worthy to be able to lead a home. It's not just automatic because you're male, and you're not entitled to a woman simply because you're a male also. Those are all things that you get through having emotional intelligence and being able to be a decent human being and being able to lead. So I say give both the young men and our young women time to heal and grow and be who they're gonna be. And if you're like my age right now, go through a little bit of self-discovery where you're healing and you're working on yourself, healing your traumas. So when your husband say, "What are you doing?" and your comments, instead of shredding him apart, but saying, "What you doing?" and trying to waste your time, you actually are nice enough to engage back and open the door for something that could possibly blossom into a love story. So those are my final thoughts on patriarchy. Don't let it hold the idea of it hold you back from being able to be in a balanced relationship.
China, final thoughts.
Final thoughts for me is simply put, we need to allow our men to be the head and we be the neck. We have to understand the beauty of a partnership, the beauty of the community. We all have our traumas. We all have our things that we've gone through. But we, like she mentioned, we have to self-heal. We have to just take control of our own stories. But I would say that we need to make sure that we are training up our youth so they can take their natural presence. So, in one sentence, I would say allow the man to be the head so the lady can be the neck, because nothing moves without us.
All right, and my closing thoughts is pretty simple. My message has been pretty consistent. We have a community that has a lot of potential. We have a community that is filled with a lot of hope, and I think that half of our community has been given the tools to thrive. However, they're thriving alone, and that's our girls. Our girls are going to become fine, amazing, dominant women with respect to education, respect to finance. They're going to dominate. There's no holding them back. But they're going to be by themselves on islands if we're not preparing our boys to do the same. Our community is only as strong as the men in it, and it's only as powerful as its women. I'll always preach that message. And so we got to push against this casual sex for the girls, and we have to stop ignoring our boys, because that is a huge detriment, especially our Black boys. So it has been a great show. I have appreciated Laquita, Miss China. This has been a great show. To those of you watching on our many platforms, thank you for joining us. We will see y'all next week. And until you join us again, we'll see you in the Black space.